Welcome everyone, Silke here. Lovely to connect with you today. And I'd love to share with you something that I think is relevant for all of us, which is about the importance of consistency in our practice. So I've been practicing yoga, meditation, and different forms of self-development for over 25 years. And one thing that I realized a few years into practicing is actually it's not so much about how much we know, but it's about how much we practice what we know. And if you're anything like me, you probably love studying and you love exploring and learning new things. But what comes with that, in particular, if we really want to change our own lives, if we want to be healthier, if we want to be more stable emotionally, if we want to make a difference to other people's lives, and also in particular, if we want to teach other people how to change their lives, it's really, really quite important that we practice what we've studied, that we practice what we preach, that we really walk our talk. And I also know how sometimes life just gets busy and there's so many things to take care of, and I know many of you you're so kind people, and you put other people before you put yourself. You look out for the people around you, your students, your family, and sometimes there's just not enough time in the day, it seems, to practice. Now, what I've learned and I've seen with many of my friends and students is that every little effort really makes a difference. No effort is ever in vain. And so when we look at building a certain aspect in ourselves or developing something in our lives, there is a compounding effect, so that you practice something one time and then you practice it again and you practice it again. It adds up over time. But what is more important than maybe on a Sunday having one really good practice in life is to have that consistency and ultimately have a practice that we do every day. Now, I want to share with you three important aspects, three things that I have found make a real difference in developing that habit of a regular practice. So stay with me. If you have a notebook, pull out the notebook and a pen and write down your insights. So the first thing is simply to decide to practice. And yes, it's a decision. It's not something that happens because the circumstances aspire and then we feel like we'd like to practice. If we all would just wait whenever we feel, I feel I have the time or I feel inspired to practice, sometimes we can wait a long time. And I know that in the beginning, often when we learn something new, we have that motivation and enthusiasm and we go like, I will do this for the rest of my life and I will always do it. But psychology and studies in psychology show very clearly that motivation has a half-life. It goes down. And so if we only rely on motivation, many things are actually not possible. So whether it is, look at like simple things in life, whether it's brushing our teeth, or you look at athletes that go and, they work out and they have to train, or people that do something on a consistent basis, they've all made a decision. They've made a decision to say, I go for a walk no matter whether it rains or the sun shines. I do my yoga practice, doesn't matter whether I feel like doing it or not. So it all starts with a decision. And it is important to acknowledge that and know that, because you and I, we can make a decision right now to pick up a practice that maybe, you've dropped a little bit, or that you really benefit from, but that you haven't done in a while. So I invite you, what is it in your life that you can make a decision today to simply decide, I will do this? So that's key number one, is to decide and make that decision. The second aspect is to be able to adapt. So what does that mean? Well, it means that our days are usually not the same, right? So sometimes we are maybe at home and we have some more time. Sometimes we're at home and the kids are on holiday and I don't have that much time. Other days you may be traveling. So life changes and circumstances in life change. So we need to have the capacity to adapt our practice, to know that when I have kind of my ideal day and my day runs the way I've planned for it, then I will do a certain practice. On other days when I'm busier than I thought, I may do another practice, but I know that I will always do it. So what I've done and what I recommend you do for yourself is I kind of have 3 different ways of doing a specific practice. I know this is my, let's say, half an hour that I do when I have the time, and I plan that in. Then I have my 5-minute, I must do, and without that I'm not going to leave the house practice. And then I have a practice when I have more time and I have more space, where I say, well, if I have that, then I can add maybe some more movement onto it, or some more breathing techniques, or something that I really enjoy, but I need to know I have that space and that time. So how can you adapt your practice and maybe have 3 things in your drawer that I can pull them out, but I know I will show up, and I'm developing that habit of showing up for myself and for my practice every single day on a very consistent basis. So that's key number 2, is to adapt. We make the choice, then we are adaptable and we can play and move with the circumstances. And then the third part is to anchor. Now, practice, shows its fruits over time. We know that, you do maybe a certain yoga pose one time, you may feel good after it, but you may not feel much stronger. You may do a certain meditation and you may feel a little bit calmer, but you may not maybe necessarily already experience the emotional benefits that the practice will bring. So the fruits of a practice, they come over time. But the mind works in a specific way that sometimes when we don't really help ourselves remember, we don't actually know anymore what it was like when we first started out doing something. So what I recommend you do, and I recommend actually to do that on a very, very regular basis, is a sort of introspection, to journal, to write down, to be able to have a logbook, literally, to understand what a certain practice does for you. Because the more you know why you're doing something and the benefits, the fruits that your practice brings you, the more you can help yourself in times when you're not so motivated or when you don't know what to do, to look back and go, oh yeah, I remember, if I meditate on a daily basis, I do feel more balanced, I am less reactive and I'm calmer. But we maybe not always remember that it feels like that, and so being able to go through your journal and through your notes is something very, very beautiful and really helpful, what I found. So if you have your pen and paper with you, I invite you to actually start doing that right now. And my question for you is, what would it take for me to pick up a practice that I've maybe let go of, but I remember did me really well in the past? So what would it take for me to pick up a certain practice, and write down what that could be? So what would it take for me to pick up that practice and really kind of start engaging with it again? And just jot down a couple of words, a few thoughts, anything that comes to your mind. And then the second question is, what will that practice bring to me? How will it enrich my life? What would change? So what will that practice bring to me? And write down those, whatever thoughts come up for you, and keep them with you. And then when you start practicing, and whatever it is that you practice, start journaling, come up with a set of questions for yourself that really help you keep track of your practice. And that's why we invite you to the Light Kriya, where we help you establish a regular practice, something that you can do on a day-to-day basis, adapt it to your life, and over the span of 40 days really experience what it means to have a meditative practice that brings and shows you its fruits within a short amount of time. It's a practice that helps to connect you to your inner light, that will really help you reveal your intuition and your inner teacher to you. It's something that I've experienced, brings a lot of joy. You know, that joy that is there just without any reason from the outside, but that just bubbles up. And that also brings a beautiful calmness and stillness to our emotions and a clarity to our mind. I'd love to see you there, and I wish you so much joy with your practice.